Self refers to a person's essential being that distinguishes them from others, especially considered as the object of introspection or reflexive action. Mahalagang pagkatao ng isang tao na nagpapaiba sa kanila mula sa iba, lalo na tinuturing na bagay ng pagsisiyasat sa sarili. There are four aspects of self. The first one is the physical self, the felt sense of the self, and includes the physical body. It covers perceptions of our body, the images we have in our body, like how fat we are, thin, muscular, and so forth. The physical self is the concrete dimension, the tangible aspects of the person that can be directly observed and examined. The second one is the spiritual self. This consists of all your internal thoughts and interceptions about your values and moral standards. Spiritual self related to the sense of self-worth and an awareness of one's own life within a larger context. The third one is the social self, part of ourself that is openly shared with others in various social situations such as work, home, with friends, and so forth. And you might interact with family members, friends, or social media, have a meeting with a boss or coworkers, and talk to someone you're interested in dating. The fourth one is the emotional self, an aspects that help you connect, process, and reflect on a range of emotions. It is the capacity to tune into your own feelings, sense inner signals, and recognize how your feelings affect you and your performance. So now let's come now to the self-concept in psychology. Self-concept is how we think about and evaluate ourselves. To be aware of oneself is to have a concept of oneself. Lewis in 1990 suggests that development of a concept of self that has two aspects. The first one is the existential self, most basic part of the self-scheme or self-concept, the sense of being separate and distinct from others, and the awareness of the constancy of the self. The categorical self is having realized that he or she exists as a separate experiencing being, and the realization that you exist as an individual object in the world with distinct properties such as your age, hair color, and gender. As we grew older, this component also begins to include psychological traits.
Carl Roger, 1959, believed that self-concept has three different components. Self-image, the view you have of yourself. Physical description, physical attribute of the person that can be seen by the naked eye, tall, dark, blue eyes, etc. Social rules. We are all social beings whose behavior is shaped to some extent by the rules. We flash as rules as student, housewife, not only help others to recognize us but also help us to know what is expected of us in various situations. Personal traits. These are the third dimensions of our self-description. I'm impulsive, I'm ungenerous, etc. Self-image refers to how you see yourself at this moment in time. Attributes like physical characteristic, personality traits, and social rules all play a role in your life image. Ideal self. What would you like to be can be influenced by ways in which others react to us, how we think compared to others, social rules, extent to which we identify with other people. The ideal self is the person you want to be. This person was the attributes or qualities you want either working toward or want to possess it who you envision of yourself to be if you were exactly as you wanted. Self-esteem and self-worth, the extent on which you value yourself. Self-esteem, how much you like, accept, and value yourself all contribute to your self-concept. Self-esteem can be affected by the number of factors, including how others see you, how you think you compare to others, and yours in society. High self-esteem, positive view of yourself. This tend to lead to confidence in your own abilities, not worrying what others think. Self-acceptance, optimism. Low self-esteem, negative view of ourselves. This tend to lead to lack of confidence, want to be look like someone else, always worrying what others might think. Pessimism.
What is self awareness? Self awareness means knowing your values, personality, needs, habits, emotions, strengths, weaknesses, etc., with a sense of who you are and a vision of the person you want to become. A plan for professional or personal development can be created. Self awareness is really just about being aware and confident who you are. It can relate to knowing your own values, beliefs, personal preferences, and tendencies. You know how famous people always say true to yourself. This is really important about advice, but it's not easy to stay true to yourself if you don't know who you are. By becoming self-aware and understanding your strengths and limitations, you open up opportunities that just are not available otherwise. You're also able to have more honest and genuine relationships because who the people that you're attracted to will be attracted to you for who you actually are. There are two types of self-awareness, private and public. Private self-awareness is when people are aware of something about themselves that others might not be, like being anxious about recording out loud. This type happens when people become aware of some aspects of themselves, but only in a private way. For example, seeing your face in the mirror is a type of private place of awareness. Feeling your stomach lunch when you realize you forget to study for an important test, or feeling your heart flutter when you see someone you are attracted to are also good examples to private self-awareness. Public self-awareness is when people are aware of how others see them. That does not start happening until the age of 5. Before then, most kids do not realize that other people are not always thinking and feeling the same way they are. When we are aware that we are being watched and evaluated, we often try to behave in ways that are socially acceptable and desirable. In short, we display our best behavior, which may not be reflective of our true personality. Public self-awareness can also lead to evaluation anxiety, in which people become distressed, anxious, or worried about how they are perceived by others. Importance of self-awareness. When we are self-aware, we are able to recognize our strengths and weaknesses. This knowledge helps us to set goals for ourselves. We know we have the room to grow, and that's good thing. Our strength help us feel confident in our ability to improve on our weaknesses. Thank you. Tapos na.
What is emotional self awareness? It is the ability to recognize our emotions and their effects on us. This means that we are aware of how we react to environment factors and how our emotions affect our performance. The person who possesses competency of emotional self-awareness is one who is aware of his own feeling. There are many great ways of improving yourself. One of these ways is to look for the positive attributes you possess and appreciating that part of you. Another important way of becoming a better person is by acknowledging your weaknesses and actively working on improving. This is just an example to be self-aware. Being self aware can help you relate well with people and increase your ability to achieve your goals.
Know why feelings occur, understands implications of our emotions, pays attention to physical signs that are aroused in situations, high blood pressure, sweaty palms, and know his own strengths and weaknesses, and understanding his own emotions and impact of his behavior on others in diverse situations.
Hello, my name is Alexis Rose Mirgas. I will be reporting the importance of self-awareness. Importance of self-awareness. In the Johari's window, there are four selves that represent you. These are as follows. The open self. This represents all the information, behaviors, attitudes, feelings, desires, motivations, ideas, and so on that you know about yourself and that others also know about you. The open self is characterized as a state wherein the individual is open and straightforward to himself and others about what he is doing, how is he doing, and what are his intentions. The blind self. This represents information about yourself that others know but you do not. The blind self is the part of you that other people see about you but that you don't know about yourself. For example, you may not know that you say a lot, and you may not be aware that your thinking face looks like an angry face.
The unknown self. This represents those parts of yourself about which neither you nor others know. The unknown self is the mysterious state of an individual, neither known to him nor others know about it. Often the feelings, thoughts, or ideas go so deep down the individual that it becomes difficult for the individual as well for the other people to understand it. The second one is the hidden self. This contains all that you know of yourself but keep hidden from others. This is the part of ourself which is visible to us but invisible to the others. In this area, we keep our very personal information, all those things we are not willing to share with others since they might be our weak points, dysfunctions, fears, emotions, motives, desires, mistakes, secrets, or guilt.
What is accurate self-awareness? Self-awareness is the ability of a person to accurately examine themselves, knowing exactly what they are capable of and what their strengths and limitations are. Not all of us have this ability. Self-awareness is concerned with knowing about your own internal states, preferences, and perceptions. As you become more self-aware, you become better able to be in touch with your own feelings. Self-awareness is very important to us because it is involves monitoring our inner worlds, thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, and so on perception or knowledge.
Self-awareness is very important to maintaining composure in an emotional situation. Not being in touch with your own feelings in sufficient degree can handicap your overall effectiveness and coping ability. Ibig sabihin, kamalayan sa sarili ay napakalaga sa pagpapanatili ng kalmado sa isang emosyonal na sitwasyon. Ang hindi pagkakaroon ng ugnayan sa iyong sariling mga damdamin na sapat sa antas ay maaaring makapagpinsala sa iyong pangkalahatang pagiging epektibo at kakayahan sa pagharap. Individuals who have high self-awareness are able to conduct accurate self-appraisals, self-confident, are authentic, welcome feedback, and tend to perceive situation accurately. Ibig sabihin, ang mga individual na may mataas na kamalayan sa sarili ay nagagawang magsagawa ng mga tumpak na pagtataas sa sarili, tiwala sa sarili, ay tunay na malugod na tinatanggap ang feedback at may posibilidad na maunawaan ang mga sitwasyon na tumpak.
There are some examples of self-awareness. The first is realistic about their goals and modest about their achievement. Next is take responsibility for mistakes, can laugh at themselves when they mess up, keep things in perspective, and do not get stressed in difficult situations. And then there's 5 elements of self-awareness. The first one is self-concept. The second is thoughts, feelings, body, and emotion. When we say self-concept, your self-concept is your perception of you. Your perception came from your personal experiences and what you expect from yourself in the future and what you believe your abilities are. If your self-concept is healthy, you're more likely to take on challenges, achieve goals you've set for yourself, and live more positively overall. And then explore your self-concept, and if you don't believe it's healthy, make an effort to change how you perceive yourself. This may be easier for some people and much harder for others, but it is possible. The next is thoughts. When I say thoughts, our thoughts are tied to our emotions. So when we try to become more aware of our emotion, we must first understand our thoughts and thought processes. Throughout the day, take note of what you say about yourself, how you talk about yourself, and what you say about the situation you encountered. The next is feelings. How do you feel when you say things about yourself? What about when other people say things about you? No matter what your feelings are, you must identify which are associated with your thoughts and experiences. Once you can identify those feelings, keep track them, keep track of them, and see if there are any patterns. Notice yourself starting down a negative pattern. Take steps to avoid continuing going down with it. The next is body. Sometimes when we are thinking, it comes with a physical response that other people may or may not notice. The next time you feel a physical response to an emotion, take a couple of minutes to think where in your body you feel the response. Do the feeling present in your facial expression, heart, heart rate, voice, or somewhere else? Is this kind of physical response you want? When we say emotions, emotions are the most powerful factor in how we interact with others. People with higher levels of emotional intelligence are able to recognize and accept their varying emotional states. Knowing what emotional state you're in can go a long way toward enhancing your professional and personal relationships. If you fail to recognize these responses, you will find it difficult to process your emotion and move past them. By effectively managing these five elements, you will be able to control emotional outbursts and work toward much more effective communication and an overall healthier, happier demeanor. Becoming more self aware is the first step in aspects of personal growth. There's some benefits of developing self awareness. The first one is being better able to manage and regulate your emotion. Because when we know how to manage and regulate our emotion well, it leads us to a very positive outcomes. It gives us the confidence to know who we are and what we have to offer, both personally and professionally. Awareness is the root of self-esteem. It allows us to understand our strengths and our weaknesses, and is a critical step along the path to self-improvement. We are able to, to control impulsive feelings and behaviors, and we manage our emotion in a healthy ways. The next one is better communication. If we increase our self-awareness, it allows us to communicate more honestly with greater openness to the feedback you might receive. As a consequence, you will communicate more effectively with those around you. We can communicate with clarity and intention, which allow us to understand things from multiple perspectives, and it frees us from assumption and biases. The third is better decision making skills. Having self-awareness give us the power to influence outcomes and help us become better decision makers and give us more self-confidence. And the other one is improve relationship. When we are self-aware, we are able to recognize our strengths and weaknesses, just like what I've said earlier. This knowledge helps us to set goals for ourselves. When we know where we have to room to grow, and that's a good thing. And of course, we build stronger relationship. The next one is higher level of happiness. If we are highly self-aware, we can objectively evaluate ourselves. We manage our emotions, align our behavior with ourselves, and understand correctly how others perceive us. To put more simply, those who are highly self aware can interpret their actions, feelings, and thoughts objectively. And next is more confidence. Start doing self affirmation. Create the habit to remind yourself about everything you have achieved in life. Congratulate and be proud of yourself. Control your emotions. Use it in your use it in your favor and not against you. Identify, understand, and then control your emotion. The next benefit is better job satisfaction. Becoming more self-aware in the workplace and you are satisfied of your job, it allows you to relate better to your colleagues and creating a more harmonious environment. You always appreciate your job and you are happy with it. And the last one in benefits of developing self-awareness is better leadership skills. Self-awareness in leadership means having a conscious understanding of your character, behavior, you motivate, and how these things impact your leadership abilities. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nail Layosa and I will be discussing the self-confidence. Although self-confidence is described as part of self-awareness process, there is a correlation between self-esteem and self-efficacy. In this sense, it is relevant to clarify the difference among these concepts. Self-confidence is the trust in one's ability to reach a goal. It is a skill that makes you believe in yourself, trusting you are capable to achieve any task, despite of all odds and difficulties. People who are self-confident may be more willing to take on new challenges, as well as taking responsibility of their actions and failure. So as you can see, each and every one of us should have self-confidence in our life that we should apply because this really affects our everyday doings and the future. So we really need to have self-confidence. Self-confidence also brings the sense of happiness. Generally, when you are confident in yourself, you become happier due to successes you believe you could achieve. When you feel confident, you can get more energized and inspired to take actions for chasing your goals. So having self-confidence and being positive is really something that really matters, especially in our life. If we don't have the self-confidence, we can't achieve anything. We can achieve our goals if we don't believe in ourselves. Self-confidence, it can be practiced, trained, and developed. And at the end, if you are not self-confident, if you do not believe in yourself, no one will. Many of psychologists tend to consider that the concept of self-confidence is related to a broader perception about individuals' overall capacity. Self-confidence guides to successful experience, and successful experience bring us to self-esteem, and RG will be discussing about the self-esteem. Self-esteem is an evaluation of one's own value. It is a personal judgment of the worthiness that is expressed in the attitudes people hold towards themselves, which serves as thermometer of social acceptance. In other words, self-esteem is how we value and perceive ourselves. It is based on how our options and beliefs about ourselves, which can feel difficult to change. We might also think of this as a self-confidence. Your self-esteem can affect whether you like and value yourself as a person. You should find and develop what is in you. Self-esteem impacts our decision-making process, our relationships, our emotional health, and our overall well-being. It also influences motivation as well. People with a healthy, positive view of themselves, understand their potential, and they may feel inspired to take on new challenges. People who have high self esteem are not worried about how they are being perceived by others. The reason of this is because rejection is something that they are not familiar with. On the other hand, those having low self esteem think that public judgment is crucial for them to succeed. There is a need for frequent validation from the society. Self esteem refers to whether you appreciate and value yourself. Your self esteem develops and changes as a result of your life experiences and interactions with other people, while self confidence is your belief in yourself and your abilities.
Good day everyone, my name is Melissa Berta and I'm going to discuss is all about self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the belief in one's capacity to succeed in a specific situation. It is about individuals' trust in their own abilities regarding a specific task or set of tasks. Self-efficacy can determine what goals someone chooses to pursue and how they aim to accomplish them. It is also has a correlation with their performance, building on self-confidence and influencing self-esteem. Self-efficacy is the characteristics that every one of us has deep inside as this personality got to decide what she or he wanted in the future. And as to how she or he is going to accomplish it, this self fulfills one's capacity or personality development through having a clear vision of what they want to become in the future, setting goals and dreams. When people feel lack of self-confidence and low self-esteem, they could end up developing what is often called imposter syndrome. Although it is not officially registered as an emotional disease, psychologists recognize the impact it has on the individual and how can also be associated with anxiety and depression. Additionally, self-efficacy also help a person to develop their self-confidence. These personal traits of oneself plays a very important role in developing self-esteem and self-confidence through having a clear idea of what they wanted and how they would be get the things that they want and aspired for.
Imposter syndrome occurs among high performers. Despite their gender, they are unable to assume and accept their own success, which could happen due to lack of self-confidence and low self-esteem. Imposter feelings represent a conflict between your own self-perception and the way others perceive you. They often attribute their achievements to good luck and effort rather than to their competence and ability. If you feel like a fraud, working harder to do better may not do much to change your self-image. You just need to acknowledge your feelings, build connection, challenge your doubts, and avoid comparing yourself to others. Many people who feel like imposters are raised by parents who sent mixed messages, alternating from overpraise to criticism, with a high focus on accomplishments. In this sense, there is an increasing need to keep proving yourself as a capable and feeling of not good enough is persistent along the way. Societal pressures also contribute to development of this syndrome. Along with the above factors, gender bias and institutionalized racism can also play a significant part in imposter feelings.
Good day everyone. The topic is man as a person. Every man is born with the feelings of pride and shame of self-esteem, an embracement of love and hate of comparison and embrace. A man identifies himself with the things he can be proud of in this state, himself from things which tend to give him a shame. He tends to identify himself with the things he loves and puts psychological distance between himself and things he hates. He tends to identify himself with the things which enrage him self-esteem and disconnect himself from the things that tend to embrace him. A man tends to think of himself as at one with those who share his principles and to be other than those with whom he disagree with in regard to principles. These are tendency and need not determine in every case how a person identifies himself in particular circumstances.
Good day, everyone. This is Lance Justin B. Final from Iriga Cluster, and this is the continuation of our topic, which is the meaning of man as a person. The term person cannot be exclusively attached to human being, since not all persons are considered human being and vice versa. A business entity is a person which is not a human being. On the other hand, slave as a human being, but it is not considered as a person by virtue of his being, vested of his rights as a human being, which being considered as a mere object, not an existing person. So sabi raw, ang terminong tao ay hindi maaaring eksklusibong nakakabit sa tao dahil lahat ng tao ay itinuturing na tao na vice versa. A man identifies himself with things he can be proud of and dissociate himself from things which tend to give him shame. A man tends to think of himself as at one with those who share his principles and to be other than those with whom he disagree with in regards to principles.
The meaning of man as a person. To speak of a man as a being with others is to speak of a man as a person. Man as a person means that man is unique, a who, a subject, and a self. Man is never alone in his existence in the world. Man has that indelible trademark of his being with existence in the world.
Man's personhood should not be contrasted to man's humanity and individuality. The personhood and man's individuality manifest man's individual unique personhood. Personhood means pagkatao or pagkatao. The man is reality must be taking that there be no manipulations that makes man's and less human, that violates the dignity of his personality. Personhood is the status of being a person. Defining personhood is a controversial topic in philosophy and law.
I am Rosal Yagas Velasco from BSc 1B, and I will be discussing the love of God. I'll discussing first the 10 things you should know about the love of God. The first one is God's love is incomprehensible. No human mind can comprehend God. We cannot define God. We cannot provide a comprehensive account of who He is. He dwells in approachable light. If God is incomprehensible, then so is His love. While we may and must speak truthfully about His love, we can never fathom it because it is divine love as different from our love as His being is different from our being. The second one is God's love can be known. We cannot define God in the sense of delimiting exhaustively who He is, but we can nonetheless describe Him truthfully. We can do so because He has made Himself known to us in His Word, and He opens our eyes to that world by His Spirit. How is that possible given the divine difference? It is possible because God makes Himself known to us in creaturely reality. He takes up the things He has made and uses them to describe Himself to us. Thus, He is a lion, a rock file, even mouth and dry rot. The other one are God is known by analogy. When God uses created things like lions to speak about himself in the Bible, he is speaking analogically. This means that the things he uses to describe himself are neither identical with him or utterly different from him. He is a rock, for example, not because he is made of stone. When he says rock of himself, we are not to map all the rockness of a rock onto him point for point, but nor are we to think that he is entirely unrocky. This continues in every way with rocks. When he says that he is a rock, he means some of what we mean when we say that a rock is a rock. He is not made of stone, but he is solid and reliable. How is it possible for created things to image God for us like this? It is possible precisely because He created them. It as it is as if His fingerprints are left on the things He has made, so that each of them contains a pale reflection of some of His divine attributes. Our fallen minds cannot piece together a picture of God from what He has made. Indeed, we suppress His natural revelation, but in His inspired word, He Himself can use those things to describe Himself, and then He can illuminate our minds to understand and believe to those descriptions. This all applies to God's love. When we read God is love, we know something of what love is. The next one is the picture of God in the Bible regulate themselves, including pictures of His love. A pressing question then arises. How do we know which aspect of each picture that God draws of Himself we are to apply to Him and which we are not? How do we know that we are not to infer that His love might flow as human love can, even what it might fail? This may seem obvious to us, but that is only because we have to some extent already learned how to read the Bible properly. God describes Himself prevent us doing so. For example, His repeated self-description as a covenant-keeping God who makes solemn oaths to His people. The Bible is a self-interpreting book. What it says in one part shows us how we are to read another part. Its many pictures of God form a self-interpreting mesh of images, and that includes its pictures of His love. The other one is we quickly leap to the wrong conclusion about God's love. We are often less alert to the ways in which the love language is to be interpreted in the light of God's other descriptions of Himself. This comes out very clearly when someone says something like, "If I were a God of love, then I." The reasoning that follows is usually untethered from God's wider portrayal of Himself in Scripture. When we do this, God becomes in effect just a massive projection of our own selves, a shadow cast onto a screen behind us with all of our own features magnified. Next is the God's love must be read within the rest of what Scripture teaches about His divine attributes. We are not free to pick up the ball of God is love and run with it wherever we will. The statement must remain tethered within its immediate context in 1 John 4, within the broader context of John's writings and within the ultimate context of God's entire self-description in Scripture. The local context immediately reminds us, in verse 10, of the connection between love and propitiation, which requires that we understand God's love alongside His justice and wrath. The ultimate context of Scripture will bring alongside His love all of the other attributes of God. Together they will form a self-regulating mesh of meaning. Another is God's love must be read, especially within what Scripture teaches about His triune life. Further, the wider context in John's writings will repeatedly connect the love of God to His triune life. John delights to write of the Father's love for the Son and the Son's love for the Father. He even records the Lord Jesus saying that the Father loves him because he lays down his life. Love is not unique for being a Trinitarian attribute. All the attributes of God are the attribute of the one God who is three persons, but we must never miss the Trinitarian character of the love of God. Then another one is reading God's love in its wider context keep us from error. Love is perhaps the most obvious attribute for consideration from a Trinitarian perspective, but we more readily observe that than grasp the theological consequences of it. What a difference it will make if, for example, we recall the love of God is rooted in the Father's love for His Son and His resulting will to see the Son honored. Then we will not infer from God is love that He easily overlooks sin because we will grasp that Christ dishonoring sin is itself an offense against the very heart of God's love. From God's love for His Son will follow His wrath against sinners. It is only when we ready the love of God like this that we will be prevented from reaching false conclusions from it by making our own natural minds the context in which we interpret it. Next one is understanding the different manner of God's love help us to see its immeasurable magnitude. The consideration of the love of God in its proper biblical context is not an exercise in abstraction of interest only to obscurantist systematic theologians. It may be easier just to think God is love and to fill that statement with whatever our human mind suggests. Certainly, it requires less mental effort must to let our own minds generate our theology rather than to subject them to the disciplined study of God's self-revelation in Scripture. But at the end of the day, a God who is little more than a projection of my own mind can never satisfy me. Worshipping such a God would be like being locked in a room with only myself as company, a kind of theological solitary confinement, a terrible narcissistic solipsism, and ultimately a form of self-worshipping idolatry akin in some ways to hell itself. There is no satisfaction on his road, only bitter disappointment. It is meditation on the authoritative self-revelation of God in its fullness that will be bring rest for our souls, the rest of finding in Him one who infinitely exceeds our own finitude, one whose delights can never be exhausted. The last one is God's love, truly perceived, always draws out from us a response of love. The contemplation of divine love in its biblical fullness is never something that ends in itself. Our rest in God never finds its fulfillment in ourselves, but always leads us out of ourselves toward Him and toward others. The love of God is to be lived as well as learned. The love of God for us begets love in us for Him and for others. The true word of love that we have in the Bible, if we have it truly, will abide in us and will not return empty as by miracles of grace we make glancing reflection of the immeasurable love of God visible to others in our own lives. Next one to be discussed is about the love of oneself. Self-love is a state of appreciation for oneself that grows from actions that support our physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. Self-love means having a high regard for your own well-being and happiness. Self-love means taking care of your own needs and not sacrificing your well-being to please others. Self-love also means not settling for less than you deserve. Self-love can mean something different for each person because we all have many different ways to take care of ourselves. Figuring out what self-love looks like for you as an individual is an important part of your mental health. What does self-love mean to you? For starters, it can mean taking take talking to about and yourself with love, prioritizing yourself, giving yourself a break from a self-judgment, trusting yourself, being true to yourself, being nice to yourself, setting healthy boundaries, forgiving yourself when you aren't being true or nice to yourself. For many people, self-love is another way to say self-care. To practice self-care, we often need to go back to the basics and listen to our bodies. Take breaks from work and move stretch. Put the phone down and connect to yourself or others or do something creative. Eating healthy but sometimes indulge in your favorite foods. Self-love means accepting yourself as you are in this very moment for everything that you are. It means accepting your emotions for what they are and putting your physical, emotional, and mental well being first. How and why to practice self love? So now we know that self love motivates you to make healthy choices in life. When you hold yourself in high esteem, you're more likely to choose things that nurture your well-being and serve you well. These things may be in the form of eating healthy, exercising, or having healthy relationships. Ways to practice self love include becoming mindful. People who have more self love tend to know what they think, feel, and want. The second one is practicing good self care. You will love yourself more when you take better care of your basic needs. People high in self-love nourish themselves daily through healthy activities like sound nutrition, exercise, proper sleep, intimacy, and healthy social interactions. The third one is the taking action based on need rather than want. By staying focused on what you need, you turn away from automatic behavior patterns that get you into trouble, keep you stuck in the past, and lessen self love. The last one is making room for healthy habits. Start truly caring for yourself by mirroring that in what you eat, how you exercise, and what you spend time doing. Do stuff not to get it done or because you have to, but because you care about you. Finally, to practice self love, start by being kind, patient, gentle, and compassionate to yourself, the way you would with someone else that you care about.
Good day, everyone. My name is Alexis Rose Miergas. Today, I will be reporting Love of Country. Love of country, nationalism, is a devotion of love for one's country. It means to give more importance to unity by way of cultural background, including language and heritage. It implies to a person that his country is most superior among other countries and he will defend it no matter what. The following are 10 modern and simple ways to express Filipino nationalism. 1. Respect the Philippine flag and value the Filipino identity. 2. Be a productive citizen. 3. Be aware of the issues in our country. 4. Stand proud for every Filipino's achievement. The Filipino is globally competitive in many aspects. 5. Patronize and support our own products. 6. Preserve the Filipino culture. 7. Respect everyone and value our traditions. 8. Speak our own language. 9. Remember and commemorate our heroes' sacrifices for our country. 10. Love our family, our neighbors, and our compatriots. Patriotism is a devotion of love for one's country for no other reason than being a citizen of that country. It is a common virtue that pertains to the love for a nation, with more emphasis on own values and beliefs. One who is patriotic will be ready to make any sacrifices for his own country. He'll never live selfishly for himself alone. Difference between nationalism and patriotism. Nationalism. This implies a heartfelt dedication for love, care, and preservation of the Philippines and everything that is identified with it. The Philippine territory, the inhabitants, the Philippine sovereignty, all things that represent and symbolize the country, the aspirations, hopes, needs of the Filipino people. Patriotism is taken from the word pater, which literally means father. It is the willingness and determination to lay down one's life for the fatherland. It is the result of being a nationalistic.
Good day, everyone. I'm Caris Arbil Katimbang, and I'm one of the members of Iriga cluster who will give light and understanding about the next lesson, the roots of Filipino character, in accordance with the topic given to our cluster, which is self-awareness as a Filipino, as a member of the community, and as an instrument of change. So, let's start. The strengths and weaknesses of the Filipino have their roots in many factors such as the family and home environment, the social environment, culture and language, history, the educational system, religion, the economic environment, the political environment, mass media, and leadership and role models. So the first factor or roots of our character as a Filipino is the family and home environment. We Filipinos have a sincere and profound affection for our families, which extends beyond our parents, siblings, to include grandparents and aunts, cousin, godparents, uncles, and other formal relations. So we, as a Filipino, our family is our greatest commitment and our source of emotional and material support as well as our source of personal identity and sense of responsibility. So honoring and respecting our parents and elders, taking care of our siblings, being kind to relatives in need, and making significant sacrifices for our family's welfare are all examples of concern for family. This sense of family produces a sense of rootedness or belonging as well as fundamental sense of security. Simply, our family and home environment is also one of the roots or the factors that molds our characters and influences us in many ways. This is where the main components of the home environment comes in. Child rearing practices. Child rearing can be both difficult and rewarding at the same time for parents to raise their child since their goal is to have their child grow up to be a respectable and resourceful adult in society. Actually, this component has three characterization. First is high nurturance, where a Filipino child grows up in an atmosphere of love and affection, providing the children with the opportunity, means, and support to pursue their goals. Second is low independence training. So the third one is overprotection. So we know that some parents act on their own needs for power and use control, and coercion to ensure that they remain the dominant forces in their children's lives. Low discipline. This is where parents attempt to maintain discipline come in the form of many no's and don'ts and a system of criticism to keep their children in line. Subtle comparisons among siblings also are used by mothers to control their children. So next is family relations. So in our family, where we are encouraged to get along with our siblings and other relatives, we learn pakikipagkapwa-tao. In an authoritarian setting, we learn respect for age and authority. At the same time, we became passive and dependent on authority. We are taught to value family and to give it primary importance. Next is family attitudes and orientation. The Filipinos' family orientation may be attributed to the colonial times when the hierarchical structure of family has been in prevalent place where age and status demand high levels of respect and the good of the family takes precedence over personal desires. This characteristic is still present despite modern times.
The strengths and weaknesses of the Filipino are influenced by 10 factors. Good day everyone, I'm Francia Blando Sardinio and I'm going to discuss the second, third, fourth, and fifth factors that affect Filipino character, which are the social environment, culture and language, history, and the educational system. The social environment. The social environment of the Filipino is characterized by a feudal structure with great gaps between the rich minority and the poor majority. The feudal structure develops dependence and passivity, and the gaps between the rich minority and poor majority are not merely economic but cultural as well, with the elite being highly westernized and alienated from the masses. The main components of the social environment are social structures and social systems such as interpersonal, religious, and community interaction. The social environment can affect Filipinos' characteristics depending on what groups they belong to. For instance, my personality and my characteristics as a student can be affected by the friends I have. If my friends are very hardworking about their studies, then there's a possibility that I will also be like them. The third factor is culture and languages. Language and culture cannot be separated. Language is vital to understanding our unique cultural perspectives. Language is a tool that is used to explore and experience our cultures and the perspectives that are embedded in our cultures. Filipino culture rewards warmth and person orientation, devotion to family, and sense of joy and humor. Aside from emphasizing interpersonal values, Filipino culture is also characterized by an openness to the outside. This is related to our colonial mentality and to the use of English as the medium of instruction in schools. The use of English contributes also to a lack of self-confidence on the part of the Filipino. The fact that doing well means using a foreign language, which foreigners inevitably can handle better, leads to an inferiority complex. The use of a foreign language may also explain the Filipinos' unreflectiveness and mental laziness. Thinking in our native language but expressing ourselves in English results in a lack of confidence and power of expression and precision and a stunted development of one's intellectual powers. History. We are the product of our colonial history, which is regarded by many as the culprit behind our lack of nationalism and our colonial mentality. Colonialism developed a mindset in the Filipino which encouraged us to think of the colonial power as a superior and more powerful. The educational system. Aside from the problems inherent in the use of a foreign language in our educational system, the educational systems lead to other problems to us people. They develop a mindset that things learned in schools are not related to real life. The lack of suitable local textbooks and dependence on foreign textbooks, particularly in the secondary level. Schools are highly authoritarian with the teacher as the central focus. The Filipino student learns passivity and conformity. The Filipino students also taught to be dependent on the teacher. That's all. Thank you. Once again, I'm Francia Blando Sardino.
Religion. So, religion can serve a wide range of purposes. It can also provide a sense of community and connection to tradition. So, why is religion important in our life? Because it can be a source of comfort and guidance. It can provide a basis for formal beliefs and behaviors. So, the economic environment. Many Filipino traits are rooted in the poverty and hard life. Our difficulties drive us to take risks, impel us to work very hard, and develop in us the ability to survive. So, ito ang kahirapan na pinagdadaanan nating mga Pilipino. At nahihirapan tayo makabangon dahil na rin sa mga politikong nakaupo at walang magawa kundi ang kamkamin ang kaban ng bayan. The political environment. The Philippine political environment is characterized by a centralization of power, political power, and authority concentrated in the hands of the elite, and the participation of most Filipinos often is limited to voting in elections. Mass media. Technology intends to reach mass audience, the primary means of communication used to reach the vast majority of the general public. These are the most common platforms for media are newspapers, magazines, radio, television, and the latest is the internet. The last but not the least, leadership and role models. Filipinos look up their leaders as role models. Political leaders are the main leaders, as when they violate the laws of show themselves to be self-serving and driven by personal interest. There is a negative impact on the Filipino.